Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining today, and I hope you had an amazing bank holiday weekend. So this is our Energy Network webinar, our August edition. So I see a couple new faces today. Welcome to you. Also, there's some familiar people that actually, little fun fact, you attended every single webinar, and we've been doing this for at least a year and a half. So thank you so much for joining again, and hopefully you continue coming to these. Why did we start doing this? Well, we designed it as a knowledge sharing platform. The reason being is that we realized it's so hard to stay on top of your day-to-day job, also the technology that's coming about and just everything else within life. So every 3 months, we come and just give you an idea of what's going on within the industry, some topics that we might think are important to you. We generally tend to get feedback from the customers before this. So topics that we speak about have been usually discussed between us and some of our customers prior. If you're anything like me, don't feel like you need to take the notes while listening, because I also struggle with that. So we'll send a recording of this at the end of the webinar, and then you can take your notes within your own time. And also, if someone couldn't attend, you can forward it to someone within your organization. If you have any questions, there's a little question box on the right-hand side, pop them in there, and then at the end of the webinar, between Mick and I, we'll answer them. So the agenda for today. First up, we're going to be talking about assessing the needs and security requirements for your energy sites. Do you have any idea of what the security standards will look like? Do you know how much it's going to cost, for example? Have you thought about if it's going to be running at a loss for the first year or two, or if it's going to, are you trying to make a profit immediately? Where did these security requirements actually come from? Was it somebody who retired 3 years ago and you're just running with those standards and maybe that's working perfectly fine? Or are you trying to implement new security standards? Are you taking guidance from the industry norms? Who told you that it's the industry norms? These are things you need to consider. Or is it purely cost driven? Are you trying to get the costs as low as possible, but also by doing that, the security requirements need to be dampened? Or are you trying to find a happy medium? And with every time we reduce the costs, further risks increase. All these things we need to consider. Then we're going to talk about evaluating solutions to centrally manage your sites. This is for new and old. When you have a couple sites, maybe 2 or 3 within your estate, it's fairly easy to manage individually. It's nothing too complicated then. But the way the energy industry is booming at the moment, companies are going to 10 plus sites, some 20, 30 sites, and that's their plans for the future. I really think it'll be quite a headache to be managing that on an individual basis. Have you thought about how you want to control these sites on a centrally managed solution? Will you be able to integrate these new sites into that existing platform, or any new sites, are they going to have a new system? Have you thought about that? Next up, we'll talk about choosing the right security solutions to future-proof your energy sites. So what do we mean by this? Are you going to be doing massive CapEx refreshes of your sites every, say, 5 years? Or are you doing it a year-by-year basis? We know from speaking to our customers that it's a real pain to do these. You have downtime on the sites, it's costly, there's new technologies. Or are you thinking of putting in a solution that could last you 10 years, 15 years, and allowing for future-proofing? Or maybe you're happy going along with doing it every 5 years and then reassessing. All these things need to be considered. And what's next? Well, Mick's going to give you, if you stay tuned to the end, Mick's going to give you a little sneak preview of what's to come on the 28th of November. And I can see Mick in the corner here, and I don't want to hold him up because he's itching to get going. So I'm going to hand over to Mick.
Thank you very much, Dylan. So yeah, today we are going to be looking at how you're going to assess the needs and the security requirements that you may need for your site, either a new site you're looking to build, or maybe an existing site you're looking to buy and you're looking to shore up the security requirements. And actually trying to assess what the current status is and what your security requirements actually are. So why would you define the security requirements for a site? Two of the biggest things: ensuring you've got the budget and understand the budget. quite often, especially with new sites, you know, the decision to go ahead and actually build a solar farm or a wind farm, you know, the decision to do that is done at an early financial stage, and security is something that sometimes gets either given a very small budget or it's not given the consideration. And often we find working with yourselves that sometimes that may end up costing a little bit more than first thought for whatever reason, because you need a little bit more, or because you kind of do an initial outlay and things like that, and how long you expect to be generating income. And all those costs, including the security, need to be evaluated against the site's ability to generate the income. So what is the return on investment? As Dylan said, is it going to take you a year of energy generation to make back the costs it took to build and obviously have the security systems in place, or is it longer? So we found that quite key. So understanding budget, both mainly, you know, for your stakeholders and for yourselves, we found to be quite key. Also, ensuring the solution that can cover your security requirements, and looking at what those requirements are. So what do people currently use? You know, speaking to lots of different people over quite a period of time, we found lots of reasons for the definitions of the security on their sites. Is it historical factors? Is it an industry standard practice to do certain things? You know, do we always put a pole up every 50 meters with a camera on it, going around in a circle on a solar farm? Or is there other, you know, more novel ways which can give you better performance, better analytics, and therefore potentially less cost in the long term? Is it purely cost? Is it the cheapest thing that could possibly be put in, which may then obviously cause issues later, like not even be able to identify somebody at night, for example? Is it enough to keep insurers happy? What's their influence on the type of security that's put into a site? So a couple of things we think, you know, are beneficial to people, and we always do at the start of any kind of building of a security solution for people, is looking at those security requirements. Apologies, people, I think you might have just lost me there. It's as I was saying, it's not just about producing an understanding, you know, putting cameras in a position and aiming them at something. So in terms of a risk assessment, we're looking at understanding the site's location. So what type of location is it? Is it built up? Is it rural? Is it a built up area? Understanding any risks around that, any of those types of things. Both health and safety and O&M as well, both about the area that site's in, and also the site itself and it physically where it is. You know, is it by the sea? Is it in a very built up area? Is there, you know, what about the actual site itself, and things like that. So out of that security risk assessment, we are able to identify threats. So we do threat identification, and then obviously threat mitigation. Those people who work in health and safety will know all about risk assessments, and it really, you know, it is key to kind of do something similar here. Obviously from that we can then look at budget costings based on that. So we do a security risk assessment, and I'm going to go through kind of the process we would look at with some of our customers on that, and then from that we would help define a budget cost. So we're going to use those that risk assessment, and we're going to produce a budgetary cost for that financial decision making. There's different ways of doing that. We find that calculation tools can help because they can give an indication of budget. There's a little example on the right there where we have, in this example here, it's got access control and intrusion detection. So, you know, the number of inside doors we want to protect, the number of outside doors or gates we want to protect, etc. And, you know, we can have some indicative costs about how much it would cost to fit out that particular element, including some ancillary bits and pieces, you know, the controller systems, the other bits and the services behind it all. So you know, some of our customers can then go, okay, I'm going to have this building with 5 internal doors, a vehicle gate, and then it will come up with a kind of a budgetary cost for that. If it's decided as part of the risk assessment that an IDS is needed, so an intrusion detection system, then we can say, how many buildings are there? Do you want to break them down into different zones? And we can do that, and then again give an indication of budget cost. key thing here is it's a budgetary cost. Yeah. I appreciate the fact, and I'm an engineer at heart too, it can sometimes be difficult for people because they'll be starting to dig into the detail. What type of item, what type of camera or speaker, or what kind of reader we can have a door. Lots of people can potentially get into a little bit bogged down in detail on that. Key point here is not to get bogged down in that detail. Lots of things have similar costs in terms of items and stuff, whether that be door controllers, whether that be readers, etc., or depending on the level of camera, for example, they will be similar. The idea of this is to get this project off the ground, to get that financial decision made, and therefore we have a budget. Yeah, really key, really key. From there, potentially you could look at high level design, not necessarily required as part of your financial decision making. We sometimes might have a look at what we call a functional design specification or something of that nature, whereby we would create either a kind of blueprint design, because if you're going to be doing a certain type of site, and there's an example of one on the screen here, a certain type of site, then there may be we will always use the same types of camera, we'll always use the same types and come to the same manufacturers for the types of fence line detection, for example. So we're able to set out the key things that we're going to have regardless of the site. And then you can obviously, in your high level design, you might pick and choose with a bit more detail and a bit more information, what exactly you're going to be using on the site. So if the site borders a high security place, maybe a data center, whatever it would be, then maybe you don't need fence line on that fence, for example. But that's high level design, not really at our kind of budgeting and overviewing, say, that initial first step you'd be looking to take. And again, it can produce more detailed costs for the solution, which we would then look at with our customers to kind of go, well, actually, it's going to, with the design we've put together, this is kind of where it'll look like. But we're starting to get into a bit of detail here that's a little bit high for the initial starting. So when you're evaluating and you're looking at solutions for sites, it's looking at, what are your priorities? Are you happy with centrally managed sites? Are you looking at having them all? Would you like them to be centrally managed? If you are certainly putting and having lots of sites, you would nominally have an operations center. So being able to have visibility of each one and being able to use that security system to kind of give you lots of benefit in other areas is certainly obviously useful. Using new technologies, therefore looking to save time and money using things like analytics and things like that. So whether old or new sites, are you happy with separately managed sites, each with different hardware, software, maybe with limited visibility of each one, depending on what you're doing? Have you got 5 or 6 computers with different software on, for example, so therefore you can't reasonably have visibility of all your sites at once? Centrally managing, of course, we've talked about that in the past in another webinar. Speak to Dylan and he'll obviously be able to send you a link to that one where we're talking a bit more detail about that. But managing it centrally, allows for better remote support, better monitoring capabilities, simplifies the access for operations centers, like we said, but also NOC providers. So if you've got an alarm provider, it's a lot easier to kind of work with those guys and give them access, as well as the versatility of remote viewing. You may decide that your some of your security staff have the ability to connect via a phone, for example, and all of that is possible. Obviously, with existing sites, sometimes then people have got, there's already equipment in place, and therefore they may want to do something that allows them to take smaller steps. You can certainly do that. So, for example, maybe using a smart existing equipment. There may be some existing cameras which certainly have a bunch of standards in them and allow you to say take them, put them into a centrally managed solution. And for those people who've seen some of our webinars, we've talked about Milestone as a system for viewing and managing video and other security stuff. Then maybe we can take those cameras directly in, and therefore we don't have to replace those in the initial interim. Obviously, then if later on you want extra features, you want analytics, you want to really streamline and simplify your processes back in the ops room, you may choose to upgrade some things later. So things to look for on that point, either for new or old sites, are things like supporting open standards. So cameras that support a thing called ONVIF. So it's an open standard. There's lots of manufacturers that are kind of signed up to that. And that is either camera manufacturers, speakers, lots of other things as well, IDS systems as well. Access control is part of the standard as well. So there's the people who make hardware, and then there's the people who make software or recorders and things like that. They are also part of this standard too. And it's about the ability for any camera or piece of hardware to be able to go in and talk to any piece of software. So that's really helpful in being able to create a centrally managed system, being able to take older cameras and take them into this system and have them be just as visible to all of you people in the ops room relatively effectively. And again, there's a couple of other things I've mentioned in there on the slide as well. So also, a lot of people, pretty much everywhere I go, there may be the odd ones that will use Honeywell for their alarm panels, for their IDS systems. And again, using integrations to bring that in is really, really useful. I mean, at the moment, Milestone as a system can bring in literally thousands of different types of bits of equipment. And we'll talk a little bit more about that shortly. So yeah, does the solution that you're looking at allow for central management, monitoring, support? Is there ability to remotely access that site from control rooms or even mobile devices, like I said? Could the systems be integrated? So again, integration into existing alarms or new alarms, into your fire panels, fence line, any other sensors that you might have, such as gas sensors or other such things, alerting into those. Just because you've got a holistically centralized system for all of your alerts and alarms to do with the security of that site. Again, we talked more about that in the February webinar. Do reach out to Dylan, he'll send you a link to that video. So when it comes to choosing the right security solutions to future-proof, then again, as I said, solutions that are open, they're going to make life a lot easier when it comes to doing that type of thing. ONVIF is key, like I said. So your video management system, you may hear them called security management systems because now they support not just cameras, intercoms, speakers, so PA systems, access controls. So they're part of the standard. But certainly with with systems like Milestone, they also integrate directly as well. And they've got a kind of the way that they work with their partners, so say Honeywell or whoever it might be, Access, they have very much a kind of community approach to it, which is fantastic. So they actively encourage these different providers to integrate into Milestone, to bring these things in. And it may be that, today there's some connections made that are fairly simple. So you might go, okay, I can tell if my alarm's going off or not. And then later on, that could be changed to be able to get a lot more information. So some people might have seen this slide before. So as we said, we can take sites that have simple connections from IDS and fire. You might literally be just one cable that comes from the fire alarm and you get an alert to say the fire alarm's going off or your IDS system's going off. And then later on, you could do a deeper integration that will allow you to see which room the alarm is going off in, being able to turn that alarm on or off remotely and things like that, or even some logic that's put into place that automatically sets and unsets alarms and things like that. So there's things that can be done and future-proofed to ensure that what you've got today at a site doesn't have to stay like that. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is that as you may be changing things out, like for example, you need to put in a new gate, then we can help with specifications. Say, well, if you specify it with these things, then you're going to have the ability to open and shut that gate remotely, be alerted if that gate's left open, be alerted if someone tries to break into the little box to be able to get into that gate. You can suddenly start to bring these things in, which is really good, really useful, and without any major kind of changes to the system. So yeah, that's really key in terms of your kind of future proofing the sites. Modular as well. We're not going to go too much in detail of that. As I say, I've talked about that before. And if anyone wants to get a bit more information on that, they can do. But being modular means that we can centralize our management systems, and then on each of our sites, we can keep the on-site systems relatively simple, which in the case of some sites where you've possibly not got a lot of space, things like, or even good internet, then you've got the ability to kind of just have the modular components you need at each site, which makes things a lot easier in the future. So if you need to upgrade a site, it might be a case of just replacing a recorder because you're going to put more cameras in, or adding another recorder alongside it. We can do that as well. So therefore you are then looking at just extending it, and from the point of view of the operator, they won't even know that many changes have been made. So getting started with a new site, let's have a deeper dive into risk assessments. What a joy. So as I said, the first things, it's a brand new site, so we'd be collecting some information on its address. Is it a rural site, urban site, like I said? Is it got any towns or villages in the vicinity? What are the site's operating hours? Clearly from your guys' point of view, it's probably 24/7, but is it staffed 24/7? Is there anyone on there who would be able to be aware of any problems such as trespassers? And how does the site get access? What are the roads and things coming in? So yeah, for us, site location, that's really useful. Some site plans are always useful as well to give an indication of what the site may or may not look like. As you can see from this example, there's literally a field. So obviously we're doing a lot on paper for this particular one. Some of the challenges of brand new sites, there's no place for us to visit really. There's not much point in visiting an empty field. So a lot of it is done on paper until we've got something real to go to and verify some of our thoughts and some of the things we've put down in our paper exercise. Often no historical data about any risks. We'll be talking about the difference between this and an existing site in terms of historical data that you might have about the site. Plans can change. At the stage here, we've just got a field and some drawings and probably some planning permission. So things can change and we have to adapt to that slightly. Also, any unforeseen circumstances. We did have a customer who we did all this with, started digging then and found they had cyanide. So they had to spend some time dealing with that. So again, there's unforeseen circumstances that we have to work around, and we do work with our customers on those things if we need to. When it comes to an existing site, then same principle applies. We've still got to do that risk assessment of an existing site. Obviously, in terms of site location, there's something real, so we can go and visit it. We can have a survey of the site as well. There'll be more detail, maybe some historical information. Maybe when we've had some people where sometimes they'll say on the flat concrete land behind, there may be travellers or something on there, and sometimes they have problems, or they stack drums of cable in a particular corner and it's always getting broken into and stolen. There's historical information we can gather with an existing site. Some of the challenges, we don't always have site plans, or they are either not available, or they're in a digital format or something like that. Not in a digital format, should I say. So then we have to try and digitize those. Some of those, it's an existing site, so therefore ducting maybe not as where we would like it to be. And we may need to be a bit more creative in the solution because of the fact that we can't always install cables where we can get them. But that's fine. We can help people with that if you guys need any help with it. So what does the risk assessment look like? As we said already, it's about analysing threats. So perceived threats, what is the likely ability of attackers, the tools they could use, those types of things. What types of people? Is it individuals? Is it groups such as terrorists, political groups, thieves, employees? And obviously, if you're generating enough energy to be up in the upper levels of CNI, then that's something you have to think about a little bit more. Vulnerabilities. So we're identifying the weaknesses. For example, equipment is stored outside because there's no storage facilities. And maybe there's no fence around the building or site either. Maybe it's just a building. And with that, what we do is we have a number of questions, and we will assess them against a table that looks like something on the right there. Again, looks a little bit like a health and safety risk assessment, doesn't it? And that's what we use. So we'd be looking at a threat in terms of a low, medium, or high, a vulnerability in terms of a low, medium, high, and therefore add those together to give a risk status, essentially. So similar-ish to those people who have the great joy of doing health and safety risk assessments. So these are some of the areas that we look at. You can look at location, as we said, access, where do vehicles park, what buildings are there, looking at threats of terrorism, theft, vandalism, and trespassing. And you can see here, if you just look on the right there, we've got location. In this case, the site is located on the outskirts of a town, with a city being situated 6 miles to the north. So what we said about that, we've said, okay, there could be some risks associated with that. There's a 2.4 meter fence going to be on this, with an acoustic screen around any transformers, perimeter protected by cameras, etc. So we're going to use analytics. So we've started to put in there the kinds of controls we're going to be putting in place and the measures. Site access, only a single gate used for traffic in and out. It could also, the site may have emergency gates. It's a new site, so they're not quite sure if they're going to have those or where they're going to put them yet. But it's not obvious from the plans. So we're just taking detail at the moment. And also, as we said, and putting the measures in place as to how we're going to reduce that risk. Exactly the same as health and safety risk assessment, really. We've got our risks and our vulnerabilities. We're going to put in measures to reduce those. We never get to the point, in theory, where there's absolutely no risk. All we get is to a point where we are able to accept that risk. And for you guys, obviously, this kind of thing means you can bring it to your stakeholders and say, okay, it's going to cost us to do this and reduce it down to this risk. If we make some changes and make it cheaper, the risk is going to be a little bit higher. Are you okay with that? So you're able to be able to kind of like just justify kind of the risks and the mitigations you're taking against them. As part of that risk assessment, we also have a summary that kind of covers the threat assessment, so kind of the components we just looked at, and then we look at the kind of overview of the controls and their strengths and weaknesses. So we've got our threat assessment. In the case here, we've put our strengths are, it's rural with minimal road access. It will be a single road that you can cover with CCTV. The site won't have any tools or materials that are kind of easily laying around and could be stolen. Anyone needs to transverse a really strong tall fence. So, and we can say the weaknesses, you know, there's nobody around to kind of, and it's unmanned, so therefore there'd be no one to alert of problems. The gate in this case, it was just an example, you know, it would be padlocked with no security measures. So if somebody clicked the padlock, we wouldn't necessarily know they were coming in, etc., etc. So we can put in what the weaknesses are of the solution that we're thinking of putting together and the controls. And then finally, maybe some action plan, which is, in this case, you know, this is just an example, maybe some fence line to detect intruders quicker. Maybe it's a PA system so that as soon as you get alerted, then you can know, and then you can speak down to site and you can let them know that they've been seen and the police are on the way and all that kind of good stuff to make them disappear. So yeah, as we said, once we've done that, we'd be looking at creating that budget. Generally, what we do from there is, certainly when we're helping, is you could create a bit of a further design, as we said, a high level design or a kind of a design in principle, which you would produce a cost of. Obviously that could take a long time and probably get into too much detail at the point where you try to make a financial decision. We found it's been useful for some of our customers to do budget calculators that allow them to give them an indication of the budget quicker, and I showed you an example of that earlier. And again, if you guys need any help with that, do reach out to us and we will kind of help you out with that and help to see if we can work with you guys on your budgets. As you said, next level steps from that, obviously, once you've kind of got a budget and you're happy with that budget, then we can certainly help with high level designs to kind of come up with better costings with you. You can look at maybe coming up with for those people looking at lots of sites, basis of design or a design spec. So you can say, okay, at these sites, we're going to use these kind of services, and we can pick and choose from certain types of services, such as whether it has fence line or not, for example, at a specific site, depending on the security risk assessment we've done. Again, you can look at more detailed pricing and get yourself much nearer in terms of understanding how much it's actually going to cost for the solution, and obviously purchasing it at the end of it, clearly. So yeah, does anyone have any questions?
There were actually a couple, Mick.
Oh, very good.
So the first one is, how do you integrate new sites into an existing platform? Is it a difficult process, or how does it actually work?
A brand new site into an existing platform? I
believe so, yes.
Okay, it would depend on the existing platform. So for example, if it was a platform like Milestone or something, then with a new site, that's relatively, and again, depends on the existing site setup. If everything's central already, then that can be quite straightforward with a brand new site.
Okay, and then we've got, so when centrally managing sites, can you have a video wall with a few key cameras showing key locations, but then what would happen if something were to happen on one of the less risky or less key areas? Would you get a notification that pops up or an alert?
All right. Yeah, we have a number of customers who kind of do that kind of thing. So, for example, they've just got the camera on the front gate. They just have that, and they have a wall with just those on. And then they will have another window. It's usually on the operator screen, but some of them do put it on the wall as well, where they just have the alarms. So the alarms come filtering through on that screen. So yeah, that's the way that they do. A lot of customers deal with it.
Okay, and then you also mentioned that you said Bedroq can be creative if cables can't be installed at certain locations.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have some examples of that?
Yeah, certainly. So it depends on the cabling that's there, clearly, and its quality. So if it's already Cat5, we will try to reuse it potentially. If it's something like coax cable, which obviously for really old existing sites can be the case, then there's things we can do in terms of adapting that for use. It's not ideal, as you might imagine. It depends on the distance and how much interference, but we've done that quite a few times. And what it does do is give, especially if somebody's bought a site and they want to get it under their control quickly, then that allows us to, for them, we've put in milestone, done that with the cameras, got them that visibility, and then look at the ones that we can upgrade to better cabling in the future.
Yes, okay. And the last one, it says, can you customize the alerts on speakerphones or they standard alerts?
Oh, right, okay. So for things like PA systems and stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. So yes, we because obviously speaking to site and saying, hey, you get off the site, something isn't always what an operator wants to do. So no, within the software, it's super easy. You can do either of the two things. You can either pick from a set of preset kind of warnings and alarms and things. You just press the button for that site, and it will alert out of all those speakers with a built-in. I've forgotten the term now, but yeah, a built-in kind of alert. Whether that's warning you have been seen, please leave immediately type of thing that's already pre-programmed in, or if you do want to talk to site, you can press the button to say you want to do that, and then you can speak down the microphone.
Yes. Okay, well, that's everything. Thank you, Mick. That was amazing.
No problem at all. So obviously we have our next one in November, and if anyone has any kind of thoughts, ideas, something he wants us to talk about, then do get in touch with Dylan. If you want to know about any of our previous webinars, do get in touch with him again. I mentioned a couple of them. He'll be able to get you a link to those. But yeah, our next one will be on the 28th of November. Be interesting to see if you guys have any ideas.
Yeah.
That'd be good.
All right, everyone. Thank you for joining today. Bye-bye.